Hey, everybody, and welcome to another segment of AstrologyAnswers.com's weekly forecast. My name is Terence. The week begins on Monday, August the 23rd, with the moon in sensitive, caring Pisces. Pisces is this energy of more compassion, but sometimes getting your feelings hurt. Now, the moon, which sets the public tone, will be in confrontation to impatient Mars. You could be, emotionally agitated, jumping the gun, irritable. Now, this is only going to be happening from about 10 a.m. to 12 noon, somewhere in that area, Pacific Standard Time. And then later in the day, from early evening, Pacific Time, the moon will be in opposition to Mercury. Mercury is the planet of communications. Mercury is a more rational, analytical energy in confrontation with the moon, which is more emotional, more subjective. So this can be a day when communications and feelings, there could be a lot of mood swings, maybe some irritability. However, here's the good news. Venus, the planet of relationships, Venus will be in harmony with pragmatic, grounding Saturn. So it could be that the moon could be triggering a lot of mood swings and emotional upsets, compelling you to then really work on your relationship. Let's have a heart-to-heart conversation. And so the Venus-Saturn can really stabilize and ground the relationship. It's also Venus-Saturn is very good for business. Now, with the moon, you still might be feeling nervous and anxious about any kind of business transactions, but the Venus to the Saturn overall, you're being supported financially. As we get to Tuesday, now the moon will be void of course. I talk about this every week. It's sort of like a mini Mercury in retrograde. It's when the moon is no longer making any aspects to other planets until it changes signs. So it's this more flat, unproductive energy. So you don't want to be making really any important decisions or launching any new projects. That moon will be void of course from 2:12 a.m. Pacific time until 11:57 a.m. Pacific time. Then at that point, the moon moves into fiery Aries. Pisces, when the moon's in Pisces, we're more overly sensitive, we're much more introspective and reflective. Then the moon jumps into Aries and it's off to the races, taking chances, being much more energized. Now, Mercury on Tuesday, communication, decision-making, Mercury will be in opposition or confrontation with nebulous Neptune. Now, that could mean you're misunderstanding what you're hearing, or somebody is trying to is not being completely forthright and honest with you. So that communications Mercury could be confused, disappointed, especially with the moon void, of course, up until almost noon Pacific time. And with Mercury and Neptune, if you are trying to communicate, make important rational decisions during the moon void, of course, the whole day with Mercury opposite Neptune, you might be making some mistakes. You might become disappointed. On Wednesday, with the moon in fiery Aries, it will be in opposition to Venus, the planet of desire and union and wanting an emotional connection. That's from about 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Pacific time. The problem here is that the moon wants to bond. It's emotional bonding because the moon is the archetype of family and mother. But when it's in opposition to Venus, Venus is that planet of love and desire in opposition to the moon with bonding. So both of these energies, both of these planetary influences wants to connect socially, but you're at odds. Somehow you're not on the same page. So during those couple of hours, just kind of step back, don't engage if you're finding there's some problems going on. And this too shall pass. On Thursday, the Mercury, discerning Mercury, will be in harmony twice a year with Pluto. Pluto rules psychology, astrology, the underworld. Mercury in harmony with Pluto, one can go very deep psychologically, or coming up with some really deep insights, or in conversations of Mercury, one can reveal secrets. Pluto can go much more revealing and more intimate in your conversations. However, the moon will go void of course again from about 2:14 p.m. Pacific time to 9:27 p.m. Pacific time. So during the moon void of course, you don't want to be making any important decisions. But prior to that, with that positive Mercury Pluto, that's also great for studying, researching, soul searching. Could be great for having an astrology reading, because Mercury is interested in exploring the occult. Pluto. On Friday, now the moon's in Taurus. It actually went into Taurus on Thursday night, 9:27 p.m. Pacific time. Aries, when the moon is in Aries, the public tone is more independent, more impulsive, more fiery and independent. When the moon goes into Taurus, Taurus is an earth sign. So the emotional tone for those next couple of days is more calming, more steady, more routine, not all this fired up and impulsive energy. So it's very favorable for accomplishing work. It's good for sensuality, taking your time. But the moon will be in a stressful angle to a restricted Saturn. So emotionally, you may be feeling frustrated or a little isolated from about 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Pacific time. Might also mean that's when you are worried about your financial or job security. But it's only for a couple of hours. Saturday, as the moon continues in steady Taurus, it's going to be in harmony with assertive Mars from about 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Pacific time. So the moon in Taurus is slow and steady, but with the Mars getting involved, it can really motivate you to take action and pick up your pace. By 6 p.m., 8 p.m. Pacific time, the moon will be in harmony with Neptune. And it's a Saturday night. And so the moon Neptune can be romantic energy, can also be very inspiring, compassionate energies. Now that could even mean going to a concert, to the theater, to a movie, and getting lost in the magic and the fantasy of the show. On a completely different level, you might be feeling more intuitive and empathetic when you're engaging in a conversation Saturday evening. Sunday, the moon begins in steady Taurus. By 8, 9 a.m., the moon's in harmony with rational Mercury. Very good for writing, very good for all kinds of communications, very good for expressing and talking about your feelings. But at 9:42 a.m. Pacific time, the moon leaves steady Taurus and moves into Gemini. Gemini is adaptable, flexible, witty, clever. So it's more about when the moon's in Aries, Aries is more physical. But when the moon goes into Gemini, it's more mental. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. So there's all this ideas, needing restlessness, wanting to communicate and network with other people. So most of Sunday could be very good for socializing and connecting with others. Before I sign off, I want to remind you I'm available for a one-question offer for a nominal fee. To order it, go to the homepage of astrologyanswers.com. At the top of the page, click on the tab that's labeled Advisors. Click on it, scroll down till you find my name, click on that, and that's how you can set up the request for me to answer any question you might have. I want to thank you for watching. I hope you tune in next week with my next segment. Until then, be safe and well.